wanted to see what Zepla said about, you know, people who use, you know, ACT and stuff like that. Does Final Fantasy XIV need DPS meters officially? You can see over here, she made this July 14, 2020.
Today I want to talk about add-ons in Final Fantasy XIV with a focus on the DPS meter add-on. Add-ons, of course, are not allowed in the game, but they exist in sort of a weird gray area. And I want to talk about how damaging would it be, or how good would it be if official add-on support was ever implemented into this game. Some people believe that if add-ons were officially implemented into the game, like DPS meters and such, that they would ruin Final Fantasy XIV forever. Like, they would be the worst thing to happen to 14 since Yokai Watch or since 2B's butt got nerfed. Would it be like opening
Since
a Pandora's
Yokai Watch,
box where once it's open, everything is ruined forever and we'll never go back to the state of innocence that we were in before? Or would add-on support perhaps resolve some overlooked problems with the game? I want to start by going over Yoshida's most recent take on this issue. And while, like I said, the focus of this video will be mostly on parsers, I might lightly touch on some other third-party tools. And I won't read the whole thing because it's real long. I'll link to it in the description box. But I just want to hit on some of the main points of stuff that he has a big problem with when it comes to these tools. First of all, lewd mods. So he said people have used this mod that someone has created to undress the characters in Final Fantasy XIV. Now, if you're on Final Fantasy XIV Twitter at all, there's a good chance that you've probably seen some heavily modded characters in screenshots.
Really? On Twitter?
I've actually seen some
I haven't seen this.
Nude characters, very nude and lewd. Characters and screenshots, and I've seen people posting screenshots of characters that don't even look like they're from Final Fantasy XIV. They're just so heavily modded with custom outfits, custom hairstyles, like, you know, boobies hanging out. And I
actually, like, since I go to Balmung quite a bit, and also even sometimes in Crystal Coral, my home server, when people have their cards up, you know, like the website, they'll have like a gallery of photos, and then there's like a lewd gallery. Then you'll see like photos of them with parts that is definitely not from the game, and yeah, they use a mod for that so that they could look naked. So yeah, some people have that.
So obviously none of that's allowed. None of that is okay under the terms of service. And I know that some people actually have been suspended, have been issued penalties for this. So whenever we had this live letter a few months back, you know,
did people still get suspended for it?
I do not approve of this. Please do not do that. Porn laws are very strict. Stop saying I said it was okay. It's not okay. So lewd mods, I still see pictures. Look, I'm not think what you want about me, but I'm not going out of my way to see the not safe for work screenshots on my various social medias. They're there. I like, if you can't imagine any creature, monster, demon, or NPC from Final Fantasy XIV, or even object, and imagine that thing with a dick on it, like, somebody's made a mod already that has made that possible.
On the crystal.
Obviously, considering that there are a lot of underage characters in the game, that is super, like, some of that is extremely horrible, and this is the reason why Yoshida came right out the gate on this third-party tools talk, telling people, don't do that. Don't do that. Stop it. But also in this discussion of the third-party tools, there is ACT, of course, and that's probably the one that most of us are familiar with, and that's Advanced Combat Tracker. Within this live letter, Yoshida said,
yeah, a lot of streamers have this. Like, you see it on Twitch too, that they have ACT up.
Basically, the base function of this tool is to add up all the numbers in the battle log as they roll out. But it is an external tool, so it is bad. You should not use it. If you do use it, Yoshida went on to say, regardless if it is detectable or not, we may suddenly decide to suspend all users. Yeah, he's gonna do like a Thanos snap, and half of the players that use the ACT will be gone. It's basically only console only console players will be like, that's a risk you take. So we want you to understand that. And as such,
Only console players
please
will be
don't
left.
do it. However, having said all that, in a strict manner, gray is still gray considerably. Okay, what is installed on your personal computer, we do not know. So
Okay.
we basically said we don't.
So this was she made this in 2020. I wonder what it's like now. It's like she's reading an article where Yoshi P said, you know, they're going to get rid of anyone who uses it. I wonder if they have in the past, and I wonder if they've changed things up because, yeah, I mean, if I see streamers use it on Twitch, then maybe it's like you're allowed to.
Don't know what's going on your computer. We don't want to put spyware into the game files so that we know what's running on your computer, because we'll get sued for that, and we don't like, they just don't want to do that. And that's one of the reasons why ACT has for so long remained in this gray area. And what we mean by that is that players use it, but as long as they're not using the information that they get from it to harass other players, to like mention in the party chat that, oh, you've got your trash DPS, then there's no problem. Just keep it to yourself. As far as I'm aware, as of now, have not been getting punishments for just running it, because apparently they cannot even see if it is installed. It only starts to become a bigger problem whenever it has evolved to provide more assistance to you. So he goes on to mention callouts like triggers for ACT. That's where the bot will detect mechanics happening in the game and then do a text-to-speech, like basically shouting callouts to you every time that those mechanics happen. Like DBM, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, that would be, that's like really unfun. If like, okay, let me share a story really quickly. So you guys know that I've only been playing for 4 months. When I started doing the extreme stuff, that's like the first time I ever did the extreme stuff with the new expansion. Like, right, this is my first time being there for an expansion and going through like everything as it comes out patch by patch, which is pretty fun. And yeah, so that was like my first extreme with the new expansion. And I decided like, oh, I want to do this, you know, I thinking like, this is going to be fun. The first group that I did it with, the first prog group, all of us were in voice call. Not every single one, but I'd say like at least half the people in the prog were in a Discord voice call. So one person, just by listening, had ACT, and some of their friends knew that he had ACT. Throughout the fight, someone would be like, so how did I do? How did I do? Asking the person with ACT about their DPS performance. And as a samurai, like I was a DPS too, right? So I was like, I was just listening, and they would like say the person was first, this person was second, this person was third, so forth. And I felt pretty shit because I was like, fuck, I'm not doing the greatest after they like did the ranking. And I didn't even ask to know about the ranking. Someone else did. So, and since it's a prog group, of course I'm learning the fight and I'm dying. And if you're dying as like, you know, a DPSer, it's not good. But you know, that's what happens when you're learning. Yeah, you die a lot. I heard that every now and then, and it just felt like, man, I just feel like such an outcast, not knowing what they're looking at. And that was my first experience, and I was just like, okay, I guess there's people who have that and groups that use ACT and talk about it in front of everyone. And then the second prog group I did, another guy or another person in the group had ACT. Interesting enough, like this guy though, not only did he have ACT, but he also had something that was telling him the mechanics. Every time the boss was about to do like a massive cleave, it would tell him 3 seconds in advance, like go over to this side of the map, stay in this safe spot or something. And the only reason why I knew he was using it is because he screen shared at one point in the Discord, and then I saw it and I was like, whoa, what the hell is that? Like, why do you have that? And he's like, oh, it just makes me better at being a shout caller or whatever, shot caller or whatever you call it, right? And I was like, yeah, but doesn't that ruin the fun? Like, because I wouldn't want to have that. I mean, if they want to have it, sure, but I just felt like it just didn't seem so good. And also at the same time, I was like, if I ever did something like this on stream, or like I was doing an extreme and the leader, the person doing the shot caller, actually is using that mod that tells them where to go or what mechanics are upcoming. I feel like I wouldn't like that, and my community would be like, why do you need some person in your group to have that? Just doesn't feel so legit that you cleared it, you know? So I don't know. I just didn't really like it, but it's up to them if they want to have it. So that's something I learned also, that some people do have that. And then not only that, the guy who had the ACT plus the thing that tells him about the upcoming mechanics was also making fun of me and like how I was like the lowest DPS in the group as a joke. I don't really know if I really was or not, but he was just making jokes about it, and I was just like, oh. And I was like, not again. I don't want to be in a group, another prog group where like someone's talking to me about ACT and I didn't even ask. As like a new player coming into that, felt a bit, how can I best describe it? It just feels like, let's say you want to go work out at a gym, but this is like your first gym session ever, and you're like clearly unfit and stuff like that. And maybe there's some of these people in the gym have been a member in that gym for like a couple of years, and this ain't their first rodeo or anything like that. And they're just like, yo, how much are you lifting, Pathra? And I'm like, just like this much. And then they're just like, what? We're like lifting this much, man. And it's just like, oh, okay. So it made me feel like such a noob and kind of discouraging. Like maybe I'm never gonna come back to this gym again, you know? So like some people could look at it like that. Like, I never want to come back to this gym again. Like, I feel out of place and stuff like that. So the same thing could happen to people who are coming into these raids for the first time or extremes for the first time, and then like hearing that and feeling like I don't quite fit in, or you might have them be like, you know, I want to get better, so I'm gonna get that shit too. I had both sides. So after like experiencing those two things, like those two prog groups of not having ACT, I have been on the side of not experiencing ACT, and now I have it. When I was sick the last 2 days, so yesterday and the day before I was sick, I wasn't doing anything. I thought about it like to myself. I was like, should I get ACT? And not only that, so my ex-boyfriend plays Final Fantasy 14. He also uses ACT to improve, and he uses this website called FFXIV. And he looked up my character and he goes, yo, you got some stats on your profile, like someone submitted it. And then he showed me. I was like, let me see. I was like, how does this happen? So I guess like whatever random prog group I was in, someone had ACT and submitted the results onto this website. So I was like, this looks like my stats are trash. I was like, I hate that it's up there. So the reason why I got ACT yesterday was to, one, truly see if I was shit, because that guy was joking about how bad I was at DPS. Second, I got it so I could improve those stats on that random website because I don't want it to be crap. And third, of course, to actually improve and use it for myself. And if you think about like Hearthstone, for instance, you know, Hearthstone has HS Replay. What HS Replay does for Hearthstone is it keeps track of all the cards you use and all the cards your opponents uses throughout the match. And I feel like a lot of people who want to improve with Hearthstone always has the deck tracker or HS Replay deck tracker. And like, it feels like if you don't have HS Replay, like you're at a disadvantage. And I feel like now that I have ACT, I feel like that's how it feels. If you don't have it, it's like you're sort of at a disadvantage because, you know, more information is pretty nice to have. You understand what's happening. That, like, now that I have it, let me tell you, I understand that every time I die, it's so detrimental to damage to a boss. I'm like, wow, I didn't know it was that bad. Like, I will be like top damage, and then when I die, I'll be like one of the worst. It's so nuts. Now that I have it, I don't say anything because I know what it was like when I didn't have it, and I would never make anyone want to feel that way. That's my story.
From WoW. He said, so for example, the thing that I hate the most is fighting a battle with notification like callouts. I really don't like that because obviously it will give you an advantage if you have the consistent.
I'm not done with the story. I'm not done with the story. Okay, going back again when I was like, when I got ACT, I wanted to see if I was bad, right? Because the guy joked about it. I looked at my stats just to see like my damage, and I was like, what the heck? I'm not terrible. I messaged the guy that joked about me being like terrible at damage, and I was like, look, I'm not bad. So yeah, I think he was just saying that because maybe I was dying and I was learning the fight. But I know the fight now. Damage wise, I'm not terrible, but definitely there's room for improvement. So there's that. And here's the thing, I was wondering at first if it was going to be really easy to install and put on your PC. I watched Desperius's video, and I don't know how anybody would be able to put the ACT on their computer without watching a video. So it's not that easy, but if you watch like Desperius's video, it's just gonna make your life so much easier. And then on top of that, I was like, okay, now how do I upload my stats onto FFLogs? Then you have to download this FFLogs uploader and then upload some of your ACT damage stuff so that, you know, you can be cool on that website. For me, it was like someone uploaded something and I didn't like the stats, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna upload something I'm proud of and like overwrite that, because I don't wanna have crappy stats on this website.
Instant precise callouts every single time. Ask anybody that's been in a static. Only, you know, in a static situation, you're dealing with other humans. People are gonna give wrong callouts sometimes, and to do consistent callouts very well every time, that's part of your skill as a player. But if you have the bot doing the automatic callouts for you, well, you are gonna have some advantage. Then speaking about this topic, we are told, and I'm continuing to quote Yoshida here, then just implement it as an official tool. But like we were saying, we won't implement it. It will definitely turn into a storm. Most definitely, it cannot be denied that it will turn into a storm. Though there are people who say that won't happen. It will be user choice and moderation. However, in Party Finders, it will be there. Quote, only people who can prove this number can join. It will absolutely be chaos. I agree to an extent. I agree that, yes, if you implemented an official damage meter that works in a similar way to the ACT parser works, so you put that in game, then yeah, people would be like, only if you can prove that you have this much DPS, then
X amount of damage,
you can join. Because as it currently stands, we have players that use ACT, we have players that are using the damage meters, but because it is in this gray area, people are very hesitant to bring up damage in a party for fear of being punished, which they very well might be. And of course, demanding a certain amount of DPS is completely unacceptable. Like, you will be punished for that because it will prove that you are indeed using ACT. This is information you have to keep to yourself. The thing is, though, ACT, it fills a need. It fills a very important need that we as players have, especially those of us who actually care about improving and getting better at our jobs. Jobs in 14, a lot of them can be incredibly complex, and without the assistance of a parser to let you know what exactly you need to improve on, like you're gonna be having a much harder time at improving than someone who has access to those tools. Stone Sky Sea is something that a lot of people point to for
exactly what I was saying too. Like, she just says you're gonna have a harder time if you don't have access to that tool. And that, yeah, that's why I feel like if some people are doing it, then I might as well also have it so I could become better. If everybody wasn't allowed to use it, I would just drop it in a heartbeat, because then it's fair, you know, nobody should have access to it. But yeah, since ACT is in a gray area right now and some people have it, it's like, okay, I also want the information for myself, and I would never ever tell anyone in the party that I'm using it. Well, now I just told you guys, but like, I would never just give random info to people. Like, I would just keep it to myself. And then it's funny because it's like when you are failing in one certain area in the fight, like you look at it and you're like, you can kind of see the answer to why your guys are failing. but you still can't say anything. And that's fine. Like for me, it's fine for me because I don't mind helping other people get better and just being nice about it. I could see how with some people who use ACT, like they have the knowledge, like it feels powerful to have that kind of knowledge, and you know that some other people don't. It might be hard for them to like not share, but yeah, just don't share it. The DPS check is actually used in WoW. I know. It's WoW has it, and I'm glad that Final Fantasy 14 doesn't have it. I really like that was their design. I'm all for it. But the fact that it's in a gray area and some people still use it, I just don't want to be left behind. What this video is talking about mainly is like, should the game incorporate its own, just like WoW, or in some form, or do you guys like it the way it currently is, where it doesn't have it, but the ACT like add-on is like in a gray area and it's up to you whether you use it or not?
Your damage to make sure that you're on track. I do tend to send people there, especially console players who don't have access to a parser at all, but it's really not going to be good enough. You're not going to be able to clear the highest tier of content on Stone Sky Sea unless you have a pretty good understanding of how to do your job, and that's great. But Stone Sky Sea is so different from a normal raiding scenario. It's not comparable at all, and it's easy to miss. There's really no reason that a new player would go out of their way to seek it out. And if you're a healer, it doesn't include healing at all. So it's like, it's really not, to say it's insufficient, I feel is an understatement. Not to mention the whole other dimension of raiding, which involves, trying to figure out how to line up your buffs well with everyone else in your party. You're not going to be able to figure out how to do that with Stone Sky Sea, and it's probably something you might completely ignore if you don't have access to tools like ACT. We simply lack the tools to properly gauge our performance in Final Fantasy XIV, and I think that there's a lot of players out there that would be motivated to improve if they had those tools available. Like, there's a lot of people who probably just don't realize that they're not performing anywhere near as optimally as they should be because they just don't have that information readily available to them in game. They just see, oh, well, I've cleared the content, I've cleared the dungeon, I've cleared the trial, and so I'm good. I managed to do the content, and we all, I got a commendation. I'm clearly doing a great job. Meanwhile,
I feel like that's a lot of Final Fantasy 14. Like, there's a lot of things in the game that doesn't explain things, and you end up having to Google things and find out for yourself, or somebody tells you how to do it. Zepla making that point of like, you might think you're doing everything right in the game, and you might not even realize there's one button or one skill in your job that you're not even pressing. What are the two skills that I recently started using? Okay, arm's length, which I've been told by Duke, one of my regulars and friends that I play with. Duke was like, you should start using arm's length so that when the boss like hits you, you won't get pushed back with everyone else. You actually stay there. You could do more damage. And I was like, oh, that's actually really good for me. I need to do more damage as a samurai. I'm trying to start doing that more now. The one before that I recently figured out was it North Star? So I don't need to do positionals when I press that, which is amazing. Like, I didn't know any of that stuff when I did all of my MSQ from very beginning all the way to the end of Endwalker. I didn't know about arm's length and I didn't know about North Star, but now I do.
There's like a very good chance that you might have not even been using half of your kit the whole time. Like, maybe you're a dancer, like you've learned from Lena, and you've got to put up dance partner the whole time and nobody noticed. You still cleared it, And I think this is a massive problem that we face right now with the game. And so I've been really puzzling over this for a while now, trying to ask myself, what could we add to the game? What potentially could be added to help people understand how they're doing in more realistic dungeon and raiding scenarios? How about private grades at the end of a duty? Say it's a toggleable thing and it's private to you only, and it could say maybe at the end of a dungeon, hey, you did C+ heals, you did A+ DPS, or you let your dots fall off this many times. Like, I don't know, it's probably going to be incredibly difficult to like properly
that
gauge.
sounds
Maybe
nice.
something kind of like in Overwatch, where at the end of a match, like you get some different trophies for doing different things really well. Like maybe you would even get better bonuses from the end of the dungeon. Maybe throw in some extra poetics or something for having consistently higher grades, or even just for showing improvement over time. Just something that could help motivate you on a personal level to improve or make you feel good about some of the progress that you're making if you're learning a new job. I think that that would be very, very good and healthy for the game. I don't think that it automatically has to be this conclusion of, oh, well, if we have this personal gauge of performance, then everyone's going to be really toxic about it. You could still continue to let the GMs moderate this in a similar way to which it is already being moderated, not letting players use this information to harass other people. Like, what's stopping them from just continuing to moderate it the way that they do? Maybe they just think that there would be so many more cases of it with an official DPS meter type system in the game that it would become overwhelming to moderate. Now, because it's not an officially supported add-on, people are more hesitant to use it, so maybe it's easier to moderate. But we just need to be able to see some kind of stats, like something. I think it would make the game more fun too, personally. Like, I think it would be way more fun for me every time I go into a duty roulette or something, that I could get like a personal little grade or something, anything, just to let me know if I did great. I mean, hell, even like a pass or fail system would be better than nothing. Maybe at the end of a dungeon, it could say like, hey, we noticed you didn't have a dance partner up for this amount of time, or hey, we noticed you didn't have any sect up, like stuff that's easy to tell. We noticed like you didn't hit any positionals this entire time, like there's a little warning.
I mean, I think she does have a point. Like, if they had these little signals that sort of told you that you're doing little things wrong here and there, that way you don't go into another dungeon and do the same thing wrong again and have this toxic person tell you exactly what you're doing wrong. Well, most likely it won't be toxic. They're probably going to be nice about it. But toxic people can come out randomly and be like, why aren't you using your mitigation?
Think something. Anything. Feedback on how we're doing in more realistic scenarios, not sitting there on a dummy. Like, imagine if you do a dungeon, like even a raid, that you manage to do all of Copy Factory and you don't get hit by any mechanic. It would be awesome if you could get some additional bonus loot for that, or just something for yourself to make you feel proud of that. Something that people can strive toward. I know that back in the 2015, Yoshida actually seemed to have a different attitude on add-ons and mods in 14. Let me see if I can find it. Here's an article from 2015 where it said, Final Fantasy 14 mod support in the works. We are working on mod support UI integration for those looking into modding. We've heard people in their desire for mod support, and we acknowledge that. We're working towards implementing it. Yeah, this was from 4 years ago, this interview where he was asked about the addition of an API for add-ons so players can add extras to the interface. How's that going? And Yoshida said that it was postponed because of the big concerns over DPS meters. And now, looking back on this interview, we see that there's been a bit of a shift in their stance on DPS meters completely. He said, if we add this system in its current form, I'm concerned players would argue about having or not having such a DPS meter. That's why we still have to decide if the use of a DPS meter will be made available. Clearly they decided no, it will not. Currently we're discussing about add-ons which you can use to make design changes in the interface to have skins, for example. And as of Shadowbringers, we now have the light theme available in game, so it seems like
that only came in Shadowbringers?
That is something that they are just going to introduce on their own instead of having that be something that players create for the game. So they were between 2015 and 2016 still kind of mulling over whether it would be a good idea to add a DPS meter to the game, and it seems that they have ultimately decided no, that it will lead to players being incredibly toxic to each other. And maybe that is true. I mean, I'm not a game dev, and I tend to trust Yoshida's opinion on a lot of things, but I don't think that he fully appreciates the scale of the problem that we have without players having any sort of real-time access to performance checks at all. Like, there's no way you can check on your own to see how you're doing. I think this is a massive problem that maybe it's a bigger problem in the West than it is in Japan. I haven't played on JP, but I feel like a little bit of motivation and a little bit of reward for players that consistently perform well would improve the game overall. But
okay, something I want to say is I think their stance of not putting like DPS meters in particular, or like, you know, just showing the damage and stuff, I like that about Final Fantasy XIV. I don't want it to be like WoW, because we could see that WoW was very toxic and it had those things, and Final Fantasy XIV has an amazing community, and I only ran into like one toxic person ever in like all the dungeons that I've done in the past. So yeah, I agree on their stance to not put it in. But yeah, like what Zepla's saying, I do think that like something that's like not a meter that everyone can see, maybe that's more for yourself at the end of the match, where it's like, you did great, gold for damage for you in this dungeon, trying to collect all the gold medals, where you're like, yay, I'm playing this job well. So it's just like a personal motivation.
I could be wrong on that. I will tell you that I have a tendency to be a little bit naive about people, and I have a tendency to kind of give people the benefit of the doubt a lot of times, and I often find myself being surprised by how nasty people can actually be. So maybe take my opinion with a grain of salt, knowing that about me. That's one of the reasons why I'm making this video today. I would really love to hear more perspectives on this. What ideas, concepts do you have for something like that? Please let me know about that in the comments section and down below. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. Maybe you have some brand new inventive concept that would actually work and help maybe manage some of the toxicity.
Zepla's videos are always great. So I want to read the first comment. If we install a spyware to investigate what the user is doing, we will be sued. Riot Games, hold my beer. Oh my god. Yeah, I don't want anything like stats that are kept on your profile or something like that, because people can improve. Welcome to the ugly side of difficult rating. Fine. I'm just saying my opinion and what I've experienced. It is what it is. I was completely honest with you guys. I told you what it was like when I didn't have ACT and what it's like now that I have it. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I'm already slowly improving. I don't know, I'm just a little bit competitive like that, but a good competitive. I'll never be toxic to anyone, like, especially while they're learning. Like, that's just really mean.